After the events of the last 2 weeks in the European Parliament, I wanted to say something about the future of the Parliament and how we make our decisions, especially when we think about the future and the entry into force of the Treaty of Lisbon. One of the things that has always made me exceptionally proud to be a member of this House is the fact that even as an individual MEP, from whichever party you come, you have a great deal of power and, more importantly, a great deal of possibilities on behalf of those that you represent. But I have to say that events of the last 2 weeks have brought me to certainly question that and the way things may develop in the future. First of all, we have been considering what will happen in the next mandate in terms of our working group on reform of the Parliament, and indeed, to give an example of how serious the increase in our powers may be, some of us spent a week in Washington looking at the way that decisions are made there. But again, there is a huge difference between Washington and Brussels, and that is the Washington system is absolutely bipolar between two big political families, and their politics are absolutely deadlocked by that fact. Up until now, our system has very much been a multi-party system where everybody has, if not an equal voice, at least an equal chance of getting their voice heard. And it was one of the things I think that worried many of us about what we saw in Washington, is that the bipolar nature of their politics has indeed turned the electorate off, and that is the last thing we can afford in Europe as we approach European elections next year. Therefore, it was very sad to see that again, in preparation for next year, we're trying to make sure that the statute that deals with MEPs, how they are employed and paid and how their expenses are dealt with, should have been reaching a stage where it could be fully implemented in readiness for the elections in 2009, to mean that we can face Europe's press with clean hands, with a system of expenses that reimburses us for what we spend and no more. Unfortunately, after many of us had spent months working as part of a working group on those implementing rules, we were faced at the very last minute with a set of counter-proposals. That, despite the fact that some of us, myself included, had asked that if there were to be amendments to the implementing rules that we had worked on over those months, that those should be notified in advance, there should be a proper system for looking at them and for voting on them. We were given 24 hours notice, less than that probably, because, quote, the leadership of the two big groups had made a decision about how things should be done. That should not be the way a democratic parliament works. Then, secondly, last week, for months we have been waiting in this House to have a discussion about whether this House should be based permanently in Brussels or how we deal with the other seat of the Parliament in Strasbourg. It's an issue that inflames emotions in many places, such that a petition had been gathered of over 1 million signatures from citizens across Europe. That petition has been sitting, waiting for some sort of debate or action in this House, but nobody seems to have the courage to do it. Finally, it was put to the Conference of Presidents last week that there should indeed be a debate in this House. And again, because of the attitude of the two big groups, such a debate has been shuffled off. This is not the way that an open, transparent, modern parliament with a multi-party system should do its business. And I hope this is not a signal of what the future might be like after 2009. Europe deserves better, and many of us are pledged to try and make it better.